Gospel is written in the second chapter of St. John, beginning at the first verse. On the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern of that is to you and to woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now, standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Here ends the gospel for the day. Please be seated. This morning's sermon is a hodgepodge. It is a substitute for something, and it is an enlightenment of something else. Every year, our nation goes through what they call the State of the Union speech. A couple of times during my ministry, I've done a State of the Church speech, kind of indicating where we are and where we would like to go. I think probably this is a good idea, although we don't practice it much, but probably should. Also, at the end of this is the annual meeting day, and at the end of the annual meeting, they give the pastor's report. They ask for pastor's report when everybody is tired out from hearing about all the committee, and they are anxious to go. There is probably a game waiting somewhere in the ranks out there, and they just don't want to hear you. They're tired of it. And so the pastor's report at the end of the annual meeting is, "Oh, it's been nice to be here. Let's go. Let's eat." So I want to concentrate this morning about what the roles of the church are, because that needs to be renewed in your mind from time to time. A few words of how to make and enhance the church, and then to concentrate on something that we want to do this year, the whole year, and that's concentrate on evangelism, interpreting evangelism as getting more people involved in the church, because that enhances our ministry as far as bringing people into Christ's care. They are not co-equal. Church membership does not automatically mean better discipleship, but it probably is a good start. So all those things I want to cover, and so I'll start with this. What is the role of the church? Why do we exist? Why are we here? Why does any church exist? And why are you here this morning? The first and most important and all-encompassing purpose of the church is to believe in Jesus Christ and follow his ways. That is the mission of the church. And when we do things in the church, everything that we do, whether it's in worship, whether it's in our activities that we do, or in our actions with each other, that has got to be primary. The church is about Jesus, not about the minister, not about any member of the congregation, not about any particular group. It is about Jesus, and that's where we start. Everything that we do within the church has to be centered on that one purpose. If we don't, then we betray the church. We even have to examine things like we do God and country every year. This is something we find very precious. Once in a while, we are criticized for this, usually by clergy, incidentally, as saying that's really not a worship service. It's not a function of the church. We here feel very strongly about that. And we've looked at what are we accomplishing by that particular activity. And I think it is very easy to include that as an essential part of our church, because a part of our patriotism is the fact that we are defending freedom of religion. We are defending our ability to be able to worship Jesus freely. I don't think that is a frivolous thing to defend. We have to understand in our social activities that sometimes people say, well, these are not church functions. Why should you have a game night? Why should you have a movie night? I think it is one of the essential functions of the church to come together and not always have a straight worship service, but to be able to enjoy each other's company and get to know each other personally, because we are a part of the same body. Every activity that we do in the church, or every part of our worship service, needs to be examined to know whether it is contributing to the whole idea of worshiping Jesus or not. For instance, I get asked about, why don't you wear vestments? The reason I don't wear vestments is my council told me they would prefer it if they didn't. I have been in churches where I wore vestments because they felt that was a part of the tradition of the church. I have been in churches that said you wear vestments part-time because we'd like it at the festival services because they do add a touch of class, but the rest of the time, just be who you are. I left that decision, and I've always left that decision up to the church. To me, it doesn't matter. I look as good in vestments as I do in anything else. But as we examine that, and the people, when they came back with the reason for not wanting me to wear vestments was, we think it makes you feel more like we can relate to you. In other churches, they would say something different. That's their prerogative. But what I'm telling you is that when we do things in the council here, we try to concentrate on what's the reason for it. People said, why don't you pass the peace in church? I have nothing against the passing of the peace. I don't care for it particularly myself because I think it interrupts the service and nothing personal happens unless somebody starts introducing themselves to somebody else they don't know, which is a good thing, but that really disrupts the passing of the peace. They want to get it done. Just run up, say peace to everybody, and you're done. I think the coffee hour afterwards and the eating of donuts and talking to each other is more a passing of the peace than the passing of the peace. But if you chose to do that here and you felt it enhanced the service, it's okay. But always, whenever we do anything, and I might add one other thing, when you have conflicts between individuals in the church, instead of arguing, just sit down and saying, what can we do between the two of us who seem to disagree on that matter? How can we best enhance the worship of Jesus in this church? Then I think the arguments might dissipate. One, the mission of the church is Jesus Christ. The second purpose that we have as a church is that we are a family. We belong to each other. And I know to some people family has a negative connotation because family always hasn't been a positive thing. But we state this in a positive thing. And so one of our options, one of our necessities in the church is to support each other, to put the most charitable construction we can possibly do on each other, to support each other's ideas, and to leave ourselves open to discussion. And so one of the things we have to discover is to disagree with somebody is not to dislike them. Two people can have divergent opinions without one of them being wrong, or one of them being bad, or one of them being non-Christian. It's possible to do that. I think that if I was going to start a church from scratch, I would require, as a part of membership, debate. We had debate in college. Here's the wonderful thing about debate. They gave you a question. Should the United States, for instance, involve themselves in Israeli politics? But here's the thing. Every debater didn't know which side they were going to take when they went into competition. They would give you the pro side or the con side. You had to argue each one of them convincingly, and you had to know all the strengths and the weaknesses of the other person's argument. Isn't that a wonderful thing? If you disagree with somebody, sit down and find out what they have in mind as far as an argument for them, for their point of view. And then try to argue that point of view and see if it makes sense. It even goes so far as something like the argument for existence of God. I had somebody who was arguing and said, how can you believe in a creator that created this world? How can you possibly believe that? And I said, okay, what do you believe? Well, he said, I believe in the Big Bang Theory. I believe that there was an explosion of two planets coming together, and then from that, everything developed. And so I sat down and I said, let's see. A person, a divine being that brings order to a universe and creates things so it sustains itself and everything has a place and an order, or just two big planets coming together and smashing up. You know, I said, even in terms of irrationality, I still would go with God created the world. Second thing I would like to say in terms of getting along as individuals is be careful about electronic media. We have so little ability to communicate anyway. And the electronic media has made it even worse. Because that's not really discussion, that's making a statement. Sometimes it's convenient, sometimes it's worthwhile, sometimes it enhances, but it really doesn't communicate. And so much can be misunderstood. In churches, one of the biggest problems is communicating by electronic media because we misinterpret what is said. Another thing, leaders understand the church is an organization like any other organization. We operate the same. We have human emotions, we have feelings, we have different opinions. But most of all, leaders, if you're going to lead, you're going to be criticized. It happens in any organization. In order to lead, you've got to take some heat. One of the things that they told us in the seminary, if you don't look on the cross, don't be a Christian. It's okay. People differ. But it is a responsibility of us as a family to join together and support each other in all that we do. And let me add this. I've had a number of congregations, and I find this to be the easiest one to communicate with. This is the best I've seen. Is it perfect? No. But I reiterate, it's the best I've seen. I think this is really a caring congregation. And I congratulate you for that. Not only are we to be centered on Jesus as our mission statement, as a group of people, as a family working together to enhance this countryside, but we also need to bring others in. If you believe you've got something, we need to proclaim it and make others a part of this family. In that respect, we haven't done bad either. As a matter of fact, for 15 years, this church gained a little every year, while other congregations were falling by the wayside. One of the problems is that last year, our attendance dropped. Little by little, we've lost some good people. It hasn't dropped by much, but everyone hurts, and we weren't going forward. And so, as a council and as a church, let us concentrate this year on making other people aware of our church and wanting to share it with them. It's important to bring people in, and we do it through Bible school. We do it through events that we have here. But we also have to look at any other way we can maybe enhance what we do. Even down to one thing that was talked about in council was, should we forward the phone so somebody is there to answer it if they possibly can? Nobody likes to talk to a recording. Wouldn't it be better if they heard a voice most of the time? Or if one called them back very quickly after they'd called in? Just little things. How do we deal with people when they're new and they come in for the first time? Are they greeted and made to feel welcome? Asked to come to our coffee afterwards and just talk about the church, or simply if they're visitors to find out where they came from and a little bit more about them, like you really care about them. Make sure that everybody is welcome. When we think about, as we move forward as a church, I tell the council, you got to be open to possibilities to change. When I say this, I get kind of a scared look. Well, we don't want a praise band. We don't want a projector on the wall. I'm not talking about that. We need a course to establish what things want change in the church. That's just as important as what we are willing to change. There are things that shouldn't, that work, that are the reason people are here. We don't change those. But some rules that have been around that probably are no more applicable, open to change. If I don't say something that's the Ten Commandments, or you don't say something from the Ten Commandments, it didn't come down from Sinai. What we have is opinions draped with a lot of good ideas, good intentions, a lot of tradition, but the knowledge that as we move forward, some little things have to change once in a while to enhance our worship experience. That's the state of the church. We have a wonderful church. I'll say it again. We do so many things so well. Let's cherish them. Let's keep Jesus Christ as the center. Let us enhance our relationships with each other much better. and help us to go out. And this year, each one of you, bring one more. This worship service this morning is a wonderful turnout. Just imagine if that doubled by the end of next year, because each one of you reached out and touched somebody and said, we've got something here, and Jesus is our Lord, and we have a very precious church family. Amen.